So to start out, I've got a blank scene here, and I'm going to load in one of SketchUp's components. Let's grab one of the houses. Just load up for a sec. Alright, so I'm going to just use this ranch house. And let's place this in our scene. And we're going to add some dimensions to this so that we can make a drawing in layout, which we can then hand over to architects and engineers to manufacture whatever it is that we modeled in SketchUp. Alright, so SketchUp has this one tool for dimensioning, and it's called the dimension tool. And it's good to note that the dimension tool works basically like everything else, in essence that it can snap to a plane and it will snap to corners. So keep that in mind when you're measuring objects and you have like flowers or something that will have a lot of points in the same area. When you're measuring in between, it's easy to select the wrong point, and sometimes you can measure like from the bottom corner and you'll select something up here, and that will result in a diagonal measurement which will be much longer than the actual measurement. So you'll end up with false readings. So just keep that in mind when making measurements. So we're going to use the dimension tool, and it's best to add your dimensions in a view where you can see everything clearly and you can navigate to the points where you want to add your dimensions, where you want to measure from, where you can add them easily. So just a normal view is fine for this, and I'm going to click here to add the first point of the dimension, and it's going to bring up the dimension tool, and just click the second point where I want the dimension to be, and now it's going to place the dimension in the model. So I want this to be on the green axis, and as soon as it snaps to the green axis, you can hold shift to keep it snapped to it, and just click to place that measurement. Let's do another one for over here. Click there, and I'm gonna click here, and we're gonna snap this to the green. There we go. So now I've got those two measurements. Now what we want to do is to see these measurements from like a logical view, like you asked for the top view. So we're going to go to the views toolbar. So you can get this by just right clicking in any blank space and scroll all the way down. You'll see the views. Yours might be unchecked, so you can just check that and it will bring up the views toolbar for you. And it has the ISO view and the top view, front view, all the different views that you would typically use. So we're going to go to the top view. Now this presents a little bit of a problem. As you can see, it's not exactly flat, and that's what you want. You want parallel projection instead of this perspective mode when you look at it from this top view. And to do that, you're going to go to camera and select parallel projection. However, that doesn't solve the entire problem, because now we can see our dimensions over here, but over here, for instance, the roof is covering this portion, so now you can't really see what's happening. And when we send this over to layout, it's going to use whatever it sees in this model and place that in layout, that view. So you have to make sure that it looks correct in your SketchUp model, because what you see is what you get in layout. So let's just pan over again, and to the best way that I found to just hide the roof, if you just want to cut off the roof, is to literally cut off the roof. And we're going to do that by going to where is that? That's under tools, and we're looking for section plane, and the section plane snaps to whatever surface you hover over, and you can adjust it later on. So the main thing that you have to take away from this is not to worry, place it exactly at the height or depth that you want it, but just to get it on the right plane to start with. So for this, we're just going straight down, so the blue axis is fine. So place it here on the chimney, and it will automatically be the size that you want it to be, meaning it will encompass the entire object. And you can give it a name, you can give it a symbol which will appear in this little circle here. We're just going to use the defaults for this. And now I've got this section plane. Now it's not cutting the roof yet because where this sits is where it cuts. So we're going to need to move it down until the roof is cut away. And we can just put that there. Now we have this cutout view of the house that we can use to get a better representation of our measurements. So now if you go back to the top view, now we can see, and this looks, it's very basic house, but it's still, this looks like more like what you'll see when you're looking at architectural drawings or engineering drawings with accurate dimensions. So you don't want to just keep this here, and sometimes you're going to continue modeling, and now to get rid of this, you don't want to move it the whole time, and adding it to a layer and hiding it doesn't actually hide it. So what we do is we create scenes, and scenes are also important when you want to export your model to layout. You can have different views, different angles, and it will get that information from SketchUp, and you can give it that information by using scenes. So let's say I want this first scene, I want it to be the isometric view, and I want the camera to be a perspective camera, and I don't want this plane active in this view. You can click on the plane, right click on it, and just uncheck active cut, and it will deactivate the cut, and while keeping it in the same area. So you don't have to move it up and down or delete it and recut it. You can just keep that cut and activate and deactivate it. Once you have your scene in the state that you want it to be, and it's important that you have to do this before you create the scene. You need to adjust everything the way you want it. You can update the scene later. It's just better when creating scenes to have everything the way you want it. So click this little plus button, and it's going to ask you, well, I changed the style, so it's going to ask me what I want to do with that. I'm just going to say create scene, save the style. So now that I have that scene, I want to go back to my top view. So let's do top view. I want this to be a parallel projection. So let's make that a parallel projection. And I want this section plane to be active. So this is then the second view that I will have available. And we're going to add a scene for that. And now if you double click and you transition between your scenes, you will see the different views and animations. So now that we have that and we have our dimensions that we want to put in, keep in mind that these are only straight dimensions, and SketchUp doesn't really provide a good tool for measuring corners like a gradient on a corner. It'll give you this protractor tool that you can use, and I can actually show you how this works. You can click from here to here. This is where it starts, this start of your corner. And this is the end of the first side, and you then move to the next side and click, and it will give you this guide, and it will tell you the angle down here in the little box here, but it doesn't place the notation for that dimension on here. So you still have that problem where you gotta add that manually. You can do that with the notation tool, and you can say this as well. After you've added this, you can say this corner is 90 degrees or whatever. But I mean, that's not ideal. That's not really what we want. So to do that, we're going to use a plugin, and I'll show you how the plugin works in a second. So first up, you want to save your model. So I'm just going to call this dimensions. And once you have it saved, you can click this button, which is new, and it will send it over to layout. I'm just going to give it a second to load up. Any minute now. Okay, so in your layout view, you'll get this choose a template, and I recommend that you take some time to set up a good template. I like to use the title blocks in A4 landscape. And there you go. The view that we had selected is automatically added. So you see everything that was inside the SketchUp window is added to your model. And you can select this and you can change whatever you have selected here, whatever is displayed here, you can change it by selecting a different scene. So that's why scenes are important. If you have different parts of your model or different areas that you want to show, it's important to set it up as scenes, because now we can easily add different views to our layout document, which will be handed over to the engineering crew. And you can set it up to change these scenes quite easily.